now that we've reached this point, it's important to understand that from here we're going to get into more in-depth topics. We're actually going to start doing some actual work, not just some basic learning. Now, as we delve into that, there's a lot of things that you need to know. So before we get too big into that, we're going to take some time and talk about energy building, which is the next two clips that we're going to deal with, and explain it. Because, of course, like anything else, if you want to develop something, it's better to understand what you're doing. Now, with energy building, it's important to understand that it's not like other physical things. There's parts of it that may not necessarily resonate directly. We may not feel anything, or we may have other sensations that we can't account for. We might get impressions of colors or tingles or whatever. And that's all important because what you experience as you're going to develop energy is different than everyone else because you're unique. Now, it might be the same, it might be similar, but the point is you are unique and what you experience is going to reflect that. But the reason that this is so important and building energy is so critical is because, well, as I said previous, to make an ability work, you have to have the three pieces. The ability itself, the power to make it work, and the will to define it and control it. And, well, energy building is the power we're talking about. As I said before, sometimes when we do certain things, we can feel revitalized and full of life. Well, that's energy. And the ability of our body to handle that energy is directly proportional to our experience with energy in a way. I commonly tell people that we have another body that we don't really understand, which I call the energetic body. And just like the physical body, it reacts pretty much in similar fashion. It has its own muscles, as an example. And just like physical muscles, the more I work out, the stronger they become and the more I'm capable of. As an example, if I want to lift a 100-pound weight, it's directly connected to my muscles, to how strong I am. If I'm not strong enough, I could fail, I could hurt myself, or both. And energetic muscles are the same way. The more that I use them, the more that I develop them, the stronger I become energetically, which of course leads to so many other things. Like life, if I'm strong energetically, it's easier to be full of life. And if I'm full of life, it's easier to be full of more life because I have that ability. Now, as I said with the three components, ability, power, and will, that's an important thing because every ability requires a set amount of power with which to operate. It needs this much to work. And if you only have this much power, it's not gonna work because there's just not the ability to make it happen. It's like having a hairdryer that you need to plug into the wall when there's a power outage. There's no power to make the hairdryer work, so it's not gonna work. Doesn't matter how much you want it to work or think it should work, it just won't because there's no power. Even if it's battery operated, if there's no batteries, there's no power. See the point? And abilities work the same way. So as we build those energetic muscles, what we're doing is we're building that power. We're building that strength so that we can get to the point of now using the ability. But like everything else, you do have to have all three pieces. Building the energy is only part of it. And as you may have some experience or heard stories or seen someone else, sometimes people develop an ability at random. It just sort of manifests and then hides again. Well, there can be two reasons for that. One is that maybe you had the ability and the power, just didn't have the will. And it can be that your power changes, and so the manifesting was because you had the power and it just took effect. If I have the power and the ability, but I lack the will, it still may manifest randomly, uncontrolled. If I have the ability and the will, but I only had the power for a small amount of time, well, it'll manifest in that time and then it'll disappear again. So all three pieces are vital. But to have all of that, it doesn't really matter if we don't have the power to back it up, because that is the key element. That's the pivotal point that determines whether we can do it or not. But in developing that, that's also why sometimes when we're developing one talent, we feel led to another. Because if I'm looking to develop this talent up here, there might be another talent over here that is more within my power range. So of course, instead of going for this one way over here, I'm going to shoot more for this one because it's closer, it's more readily available. And that's oftentimes what's happening when we're being guided or led to something else. We're just using something that's closer. By the same token, if I'm working to develop this talent and I have this much power, but I didn't notice this talent down here, and I'm not really paying any attention to it, well, it's going to manifest too. It's going to kick in, just not necessarily under my control because the will is missing. And that's a lot of what's going to happen as we develop our abilities. And that's really why when we develop one ability, it leads to other abilities being developed, is simply because we're building our power level. And the truth is, we don't know what the extreme that we could reach is. We don't know how far we can go. I mean, we all have this idea that at one point we're going to be beings of pure physical energy. Well, wouldn't that mean we basically have virtually unlimited power? Well, at that point, wouldn't we expect that we could do just anything we imagine? And that's the point. We don't know, but this is a great way to start, to deal with this stuff more in the human range. And the nice thing about doing this is that this, again, the third component, will, is also connected to trust, which is also connected to developing energetic muscles. If I'm doing techniques to build my energetic muscles and become stronger energetically, I'm working with things that at beginning at least I might not be able to feel or recognize or understand, but I'm going to be building trust. So they all kind of go hand in hand. As I learn to trust, I'm going to get better at everything I do and do better at developing and better at strengthening and so on and so forth. But another side of that too is what I call experiential evidence. As certain things occur, you can't explain them to someone else. Like, I can't tell you what an energetic muscle is going to feel like or how it's going to react because there's no words. But I can show you how to develop your own. And when you start to develop your own, you're going to start seeing them. You're going to have personal firsthand experience. There's going to be evidence, but it's not evidence you can give to someone else. It's personal evidence. It's experiential evidence. And that's a lot of what this stuff is about, really, that we're not really going to be able to say definitively, yes, no, maybe, that this is how it's going to work or it does work. We're working on ideas and perceptions. And as you grow and develop and build the understanding, then it's all going to add clarity. It's all going to make more sense. And at the end of the day, it's all going to build trust. It's all going to build those energetic muscles, which opens up more doors, leads to more power and ability, which leads to more doors and more power and ability, and so on and so forth. And of course, the same thing as we develop our energy, if we have faith and trust in ourselves, then we can actively use that energy to do good things, to do the things that we consciously, actively want to do, instead of that just sort of randomly happen or that we may not want to happen. After all, I said in other clips, sometimes we become afraid of certain things. And if I have the power and the ability, but I'm terrified of doing it, I can shut it down. And that's also why it's important to develop these skills, because sometimes we're more interested in how to turn them off just as much as how to turn them on. Because some skills, it's better that way. A perfect example is empathy. There are people who can't walk inside a hospital without feeling physically sick. The truth is that they need to learn how to shut the talent off just as much as they need to learn how to turn it on or control it. And so all of this is interconnected. So as we delve into the energy building exercises, understand that it's going to be different for everyone. You may or may not feel something. You may or may not see something. You may have other sensations. Who knows? But what matters is that you keep doing it. If you're one of these lucky few that can build your energy muscles by doing physical activity or working on creative endeavors, do those too. The more things that at the end of the day we feel energized and vitalized, that's what we're doing. We're working out those energetic muscles, and we can only benefit at the end. So don't just limit yourself to one thing or one technique or one tool. Explore, experiment. If you come up with others, share them with other people. Let people know that, hey, I did this and it worked, or I did this and it was successful for me. Because that's how we best grow and evolve as a whole species, by sharing with each other. And that's what I'm hoping you'll do. So remember, just play. Have some fun. Don't worry too much. Just allow yourself to be led and go with whatever feels right for you. Go with whatever fills you with energy. So now we'll get into some of the building exercises. Look forward to that.